Hallie Biden speaks. They began this process, this testimony, by resetting the peculiar nature of this relationship, that Hallie Biden was Beau Biden's widow, that she and Hunter Biden began a romantic relationship soon after Beau Biden's death, and that romantic relationship was still underway during the pivotal period of time in this case, October 2018. That's when, according to prosecutors, Hunter Biden knowingly possessed a gun while being a drug user and made false statements on the forms to get that gun. He's pleaded not guilty, and he was sitting alert as Hallie Biden detailed this sequence of events in mid-October 2018 when she says she found the gun while searching his car to ensure there were no drugs or booze in there. She said she found the gun, and in her words, "I didn't want him to hurt himself with it or the kids to find it and hurt themselves." She considered hiding it, she said, but was afraid one of her children would find it if she hid it. So she took it to a grocery store in Wilmington, Delaware, and threw it in a dumpster. In her words during her testimony, "I realize it was a stupid idea now, but I was panicking." The prosecution during this testimony showed surveillance video clips of Hallie Biden's car entering that grocery store parking lot, her getting out of the car with the gun in a grocery bag in hand. They also showed video of her sometime later that same day in October 2018 going back to the parking lot, back to the grocery store, trying to find the gun she discarded, and also some footage of her in the store at one point. This is all critical for prosecutors because they're trying to make this case that not only was Hunter Biden somebody who should not have had a gun, but that he knew he was a drug user or drug addict when he had the gun.
What then, Scott? You know, all of this just sounds so personal and uncomfortable, and it's a description of someone spiraling. What is next for the prosecution? Are we expecting to hear from anyone else, considering Hallie was really the star witness?
And Hunter Biden, the ones they exchanged through the course of October 2018 and after the disposal of that gun. And one of the text messages that jumped out at me is when Hunter Biden, according to prosecutors, text messaged Hallie to say, "It's hard to believe anybody is that stupid. Who in their right mind would trust you?" That was the response from Hunter once the gun was discarded. And Hallie Biden responded, according to prosecutors, "You run away like a child and blame me." This is the set of exchanges prosecutors are trying to lean into when explaining and arguing that they say Hunter Biden knew he was a drug user when he had the gun.
Has had a surprisingly tragic life. Just a few years ago, he lost his oldest son, Beau, to cancer, while his younger son, Hunter, has spent years struggling to free himself from dependence on drugs and alcohol. Perhaps the greatest sorrow in Joe Biden's life, however, occurred early on in his senatorial career when he received the kind of phone call every spouse and parent dreads.
But the call said, my wife was dead, my daughter was dead, and I wasn't sure how my sons were going to make it.
As Biden told Marie Claire on December 18, 1972, "My wife and 3 children were Christmas shopping. A tractor-trailer broadsided them and killed my wife and killed my daughter." Suddenly, the young senator-elect from Delaware found himself a single dad with his 2 surviving kids in the hospital with serious injuries, and he was actually sworn into office at their bedsides. Hunter, in presenting Beau's eulogy in 2015, noted that being in the hospital was his very first memory. He said, "I was almost 3 years old. I remember my brother, who was 1 year and 1 day older than me, holding my hand, staring into my eyes, saying, 'I love you, I love you, I love you,' over and over and over again." Once the kids were out of the hospital, Biden resumed his political career but rode the train back to their home in Wilmington every night from his D.C. office, a habit that earned him the nickname Amtrak Joe. The first Mrs. Biden, Nelia Hunter, was born in 1942 in Skaneateles, New York. She later studied at Syracuse University and during her junior year took a spring break trip to Nassau, where she met a University of Delaware junior named Joe. Evidently, they hit it off, since a few years later, Joe decided to attend law school at Syracuse, and the two married in August of 1966. After the couple wed, they moved to Wilmington, Delaware, where new lawyer Joe got his first start in politics by serving on the Newcastle County Council. Soon Joe would take things a step further, challenging Delaware's Republican incumbent Senator J. Caleb Boggs for his seat. Nelia was said to be the brains behind the campaign, somehow managing to engineer his come-from-behind win while simultaneously mothering 3 small children. In her autobiography, Where the Light Enters, Joe's current wife, Jill Biden, describes how she had the pleasure of meeting Nelia just a month before her untimely demise. She wrote about her easy, natural beauty and her warm smile. She also wrote about how unfair the situation was. To take a mother from her children, to take a daughter from her father, Joe Biden had had everything, and in a horrible second, it was gone. According to The Independent, shortly after Biden's victory in the November 1972 election, Nelia asked her husband, "What's going to happen, Joey? Things are too good." Sadly, she was right. Just 1 week before Christmas came the car crash as a tractor-trailer carrying corn slammed into the side of the Biden family's Chevy station wagon. In that terrible moment, as Biden later described, "My whole world was altered forever." He soldiered through, however, not only holding up through a memorial service that drew a crowd of 1,200, but staying strong to help his injured sons. As Biden wrote in 2017's Promise Me Dad, "The pain had seemed unbearable in the beginning, and it took me a long time to heal, but I did survive the punishing ordeal. I made it through with a lot of support and reconstructed my life and my family." Biden has mentioned this profoundly sad event in many speeches he's given over the years, including a 2012 address to U.S. military service members and how hard it can be to move on after such an unspeakable tragedy. He said, "Keep thinking what your husband or wife would want you to do. Keep thinking what it is, and keep remembering those kids of yours, or him or her, the rest of their life. Blood of my blood, bone of my bone."
Of some of the most important life, the criminal case against him is speeding toward a conclusion. The prosecution alleges that the first son knowingly lied on a federal form, checking a box claiming he was not an active drug user before purchasing a gun. They built their case by using Hunter himself to tell the story of a 4-year period of time where he was deeply controlled by crack, pulling clips from his audiobook, Beautiful Things.
Mainly, however, we just planted ourselves on the couch and smoked a ton of crack.
The jury also heard from several of Hunter's former romantic partners, his ex-wife, Kathleen Buell, his girlfriend, Zoe Keston, and his late brother Bo's widow, Hallie, all who had personal experiences with his drug addiction. Keston testifying at one point, Hunter was smoking crack every 20 minutes or so. But the defense has worked hard to plant a seed of reasonable doubt with the jury, arguing that the only period of his life that matters is the moment he bought the gun and checked that box. Defense attorney Abby Lowell getting Hallie Biden to testify that she never saw Hunter do drugs during the month of October when the gun was purchased. And the defense called Hunter's daughter Naomi, who testified that she viewed her father on the road to recovery during that time. "It was the clearest I'd seen him since my uncle died. He seemed really great," she said. And in the courtroom every day but one, the First Lady, Jill Biden, who even flew back and forth from France to support Hunter in court. And overnight, the defense team asking the judge for clarification over the jury instructions, a sign that this
99% of the 30-plus years I've been trying cases, I don't put my clients on the stand because it shouldn't have to come down to that.
The First Lady's presence in the courtroom could also have an impact on the jury. She made the whirlwind trip from France to Delaware to attend the trial again Friday before traveling back to Europe Saturday.
Did other things in business that enabled them to, live a good life, despite the fact that he was dependent on alcohol. She described several times that he was in rehab for alcohol. But it was after the death of his brother, Bo Biden, that the crack came into their lives, broke that marriage up, and he declined to go to rehab. On cross-examination, a very quiet and respectful cross-examination from Hunter Biden's lawyer, Abby Lowell. Abby Lowell gently established that she never saw Hunter Biden use crack cocaine. She had no doubt that he did, and he acknowledged it to her, but she was not familiar with his usage. He was trying to sort of distance her as an eyewitness to that, and that after he left the house in 2015, she didn't have much contact with him at all. And so the defense tried to diminish her significance by saying that she wasn't there, not an eyewitness to the crucial months in this trial.
Idea of incarcerating people off offenses or drug-related offenses. So the danger when you're dealing with kind of a guy who may be a little vulnerable and sympathetic is that you kind of bully him a little bit too much. If you run up the score, if you humiliate him, that could turn jurors off. You've also got Hunter Biden's family in the front row. Jill Biden has been in and out. His stepmom has been in and out of the courtroom. When you start really running up the score and spiking the football and doing your touchdown dances, you're kind of humiliating them too. And there's a real personal price to that. So that
Hunter Biden appeared to wipe away tears as his eldest daughter, Naomi, told the jury about visiting him while he was in a rehab center in California. She said he appeared to be improving just weeks before he purchased the gun at the center of the trial. Scott McFarland is at the federal courthouse in Wilmington, Delaware.
We'll find out Monday morning if Hunter Biden, the president's son, takes the stand in his own defense. His defense attorney raised that prospect before the jury went home for the long weekend Friday afternoon. That jury heard a week's worth of emotional, at times sad testimony from members of the Biden family about the depths of Hunter's addiction to crack cocaine. She testified about throwing the gun away after discovering it in a dumpster at a grocery store. If there's no testimony from Hunter Biden Monday, this case goes to closing arguments and then into the hands of a Delaware jury.
After this confrontation, it's prudent for him to be there and said that he disputed Ms. Cohen Biden's characterization of him as a Nazi, saying that he respects the Constitution.
All right. So even aside from that, you can't ignore, Mike, the tabloid aspect of this trial. It was Hallie Biden who found the gun at the center of this and threw it away. The defense attorney today seemed to try to put some of the blame on Hallie Biden. Tell us what unfolded in terms of the defense story today.
Yeah, during the course of the opening statements, we saw the prosecutors lay out some of the evidence they're going to introduce, including the testimony they expect from Hallie Biden, who would talk about, and there was some surprise for those who weren't familiar with the details about Hallie Biden's own use of drugs while she was romantically involved with Hunter Biden. When Abby Lowell, the defense attorney, had his chance to deliver opening statements, he tried to lay out the chain of custody for the gun that Hunter Biden purchased, which is at the center of this case. And he tried to, over the course of explaining that timeline, prove, at least create some reasonable doubt about whether or not Hunter was addicted to drugs, using drugs at the time. So he noted that there had been some cocaine residue that was found on the weapon after it was discovered. And Mr. Lowell suggested, based on the fact that it was in a locked box in the car that Hunter Biden had been using, that it was that Hallie, when she recovered the gun, may have been responsible for the cocaine residue.
Hold up. Kenny Powers, is that you at my new dealership?
Ashley fucking Schaefer.
Woo-hoo-hoo. Captain Kenneth J. Powers.
This is who you're working for now? Yeah.
I see you haven't forgotten about us little people. Woo!
I thought you owned that BMW joint.
Oh, I did. Till I got tangled up with some Better Business Bureau bullshit, misplaced VIN numbers, customer gouging, allegations of prostitution, semi-automatic weapons found with trace levels of cocaine dust. Those are minor
Defense attorney raised that prospect one weekend Friday afternoon. That jury heard a week's worth of emotional, at times sad testimony from members of the Biden family.
Emotional, Kira, extremely painful, it appears, and extremely private and personal. She did testify about seeing her father in October of 2018, the time that he owned that gun, giving some points to the defense, saying that he seemed great, the best she had seen him, and that she felt hopeful about his addiction. But I will say, on cross-examination, the defense having to go at her a little, or excuse me, the prosecution having to go at her a little bit, sort of picking apart her relationship with her father, emphasizing that there were times where she did not see him and that perhaps she didn't even know what he he was like when he was on drugs, and she conceded that she guessed that she would not. And they even, Kira, read out some of those private text messages that they had together. At one point, Naomi texting her father in 2018, "I'm sorry, I can't do this. I miss you. I just want to see you." Really, again, I've said it a number of times, but very painful, very emotional. Hunter appearing to possibly get emotional. We saw him, wiping near his face. And, he embraced his daughter when she left the stand, and she was only up there for a little bit, less than 45 minutes. But just in those 45 minutes, quite remarkable.
So when court resumes back on Monday, who could we hear from next?
Threw it in the grocery store can. Prosecutors say Biden bought a gun while he was a drug addict at the time and lied about it on a questionnaire. But the defense poking holes in the case, saying no witness has confirmed Hunter Biden was using at that time. The gun store clerk who sold Hunter Biden the firearm said he showed no symptoms of drug or alcohol use.
A gun. She said she panicked and used a pouch in his truck, which the prosecution says later tested positive to having cocaine in it, to conceal the gun before frantically throwing it out in a trash at a nearby grocery store. Jurors in court were shown surveillance video from that market dated 11 days after Hunter Biden allegedly obtained the firearm illegally. At the heart of the case, whether the president's son was using drugs at the time of the gun purchase. He's charged with 2 counts of lying on a federal form and 1 count of unlawfully obtaining a firearm while using drugs. Prosecutors zeroing in on how Hallie Biden described Hunter Biden as tired and exhausted, and that he, quote, could have been on drugs. That's why she said she tried to clean out his car so they could start anew. But the defense trying to poke holes in the case, saying no witness has confirmed Hunter Biden was using during that month. Today, the gun store clerk who sold Hunter Biden the firearm testified the younger Biden did not exhibit any symptoms of drug or alcohol use. Hunter Biden's attorneys underscoring how he had just finished rehabilitation and may not have thought of himself as an addict, and therefore did not knowingly lie on the federal form which asked, "Are you an unlawful user of or addicted to various narcotics?" The trial continues tomorrow. Hunter Biden's attorney.
Prosecutors proves Hunter lied on the federal form for gun purchases where he denied abusing drugs. Jurors leaned in as Hallie recounted seeing Hunter for the first time just over a week after the purchase, looking tired, exhausted, and like he hadn't slept. She said she found the remnants of crack cocaine, some paraphernalia, and that Colt revolver. "I panicked. I wanted to get rid of them," she told the jury. She feared he would commit suicide. Prosecutors revolver. "I panicked. I wanted to get rid of them," she told the jury. She feared he would commit suicide. He would commit suicide.